Okay, I think there may be a problem with this video. Very unfortunate, and it's something I've been dealing with in real life, so if it annoys you, believe me, it bothers me as well. You can probably hear the crickets. So part of this room, the top of the wardrobe, the gyprock that's basically the ceiling part of there is broken at the side. So it's basically the rectangle at the top of the wardrobe where ceiling is. And one of the four sides, one of the long sides, is just completely like cracked, it's just hollow. So there's just like a cricket's found its way up into the roof, and then I can just hear it. So I wish it wasn't like this. I really wish it wasn't. Fuck. I did say I would start now. Give me a second. I'm gonna pop out chat. I'm gonna keep going anyway. Pop out. Nice. Hello. There's an Indonesian, an Austrian, an Australian, and then people I don't necessarily know where they're from. Okay. Why don't we just try doing it anyway, right? This is it. Maybe I should do this. Yep, that's better. Okay. Alright, the main point of me doing this is I really do like talking about the game. I like talking about games in general. It's like one of my favorite things to do. But I have no motivation to edit stuff. So I thought I'd just live stream this. This is all the spells in Jewels of the Roses. Look at them. Look at them. Oof. So I'm going to try to take into account like every property of the spell. Especially like the deck cost. One of my favorite things is determining how valuable a spell is compared to deck cost, but it's not as dependent compared to monsters because all properties, all spells have the same property where they don't cost any summoning power to play. So all the cards you're seeing on screen right now, you can just play this and keep the 3 summoning power you gained that turn, and then next turn gain another 3, and you can play something that's 6 stars. You know, like Summon Skull, because he's cool. Yeah, I am pretty bored. I'm not gonna lie. But this is entertaining, so I'm gonna do it. You guys can feel free to talk about any of the spells. I think I'm just gonna start from... I'm gonna go from here downwards, and then, I don't know, I might stop on one. You can see all the terrain spells are probably gonna be around the same. You could rank some higher, but we'll get there. We got Dragon Capture Jar first. So there's like a bunch of 50 deck cost spells in the game that just kill stuff. I'm actually gonna move them up here, well, behind Time Seal. There's just like, I don't know, between 5 and 10 of these. 50 deck cost spells that just kill one type of monster, but in the case of Dragon Capture Jar, it just spellbinds them. I think the entire point of them making that difference was because of Lord of D. If Lord of D is face up defense, then dragons can't be spellbound. So this is like just a cut below like all of these. You can make the argument whether destroying or spellbinding is better. I think destroying's ultimately better. Like, you can always revive something you destroy. You can, for example, like, Just play Eradicating Aerosol against like a perfectly ultimate Great Moth, and then like play Monster Reborn on it. So these spells, they're pretty expensive, but you know, I'm happy that they have these counter spell cards in the game. A lot of people will talk about how great Pumpkin is, but it's like if you just play this, you just kill it. This one is actually, interestingly enough, Breath of Light is probably a cut below because it counters rocks, and rocks actually have the leader ability that gives immunity from spells and traps to their own rocks. So this, you could argue this is like pointless. If you're playing against a rock deck, surely you'd have like rocks around your deck leader and they just cannot die from this. So I don't know, maybe this is worse than the others. This Stainstorm's probably like the best one. I think machines are like the strongest type in the game, maybe. I would argue that they are personally, so maybe this is like the best one. Like, people would probably just play this, I can imagine, like if you had online Duels with Roses. Because you just, if you're against a machine deck, this would be like the best card, unless you had like Electromagnetic Bagworm, I guess. But again, you could destroy all the enemy shit with this and then revive it with Monster Reborn. I think water are the best. There's no 50 deck cost counter card for water, interestingly enough. So yeah, Dragon Capture Jar. It's just, it's underwhelming. Like, I never ever really bothered to use this. I never really bothered to use a lot of these cards, but at least Stainstorm and yeah, this card, Eternal Rest, that's what it's called. They're good in the campaign, and yeah, this card is actually good. But I don't know, it's probably not an A tier spell, because I'm probably going to put A tier, like really cool stuff here, probably. We'll see. We shall see. Yeah, Warrior Elimination goes in here. There's also Cold Wave. Where is that? Cold Wave, this may as well be D tier, right? Because just, dinosaurs are so bad. Like, you don't need this. And, like, while we're here, why don't we talk about Dark Hole, which is, like, one of the best spells in the game, right? These are all 50 deck cost spells. And Dark Hole just kills everything, okay? And this is a weird argument because this involves a trap card, which isn't a spell, but if you play White Hole, then you play Dark Hole, you just kill all the enemy stuff. It's just absolutely broken, this card. Instead of killing all monsters on the field like real Yu-Gi-Oh!, it just kills every single card on the field. So if you have it face down and then you like approach the enemy deck leader, you activate this and then you just play like, I don't know, Meteor Black Dragon with one equip and OTK the enemy or some shit. Crazy card. I play PS2. Yeah, Mimicat is S. I mean, we'll get there. I mean, well, I may as well put it after Monster Reborn and these revival spells, right? Because they're basically, these are kind of similar, but not. This is just fucking, alright, I'm just gonna put this straight in S tier because this is just so good. I was first gonna like talk about how great Monster Reborn is. This is just Monster Reborn on steroids. This is just like, I can't even describe it in words. It's a Monster Reborn that can also be a Grave Robber. Now, already Monster Reborn is like one of the best spells in the game. Like, you just do so much crazy stuff with it. You just dump shit, revive it, revive what the enemy has. You can attack the enemy directly, Monster Reborn on top of that card, revive that same card, and then do it again. It's just weird when you think about the possibilities in, like, I'm not even talking about competitive, just like casual, competitive. The fact that it's just the most useful card, you can even get it in the graveyard slots, and for 50 deck cost, if you think about all these cards apart from Mimicat, which is 80, it's just, the plays you can make with it are absolutely insane. I think I stick it in A, because Mimicat is just a cut above that, and like Dark Hole is just this broken piece of crap. So now, like, to put into the perspective, we already talked about Monster Reborn, which is pretty good, right? We also get a Grave Robber. So the difference actually, Grave Robber, I think, like, it's. I don't know if it's A or B. Like, I think it's better than these cards. Right. Definitely. This is good because you can revive a spell or trap. You can even revive an equip, like Ryoku, if you wanted to. The difference between Monster Reborn and reviving a card that isn't a monster is if you revive a monster, you can move it, you can attack with it, you can do like you can flip it up and activate its effect. It's pretty crazy, like on the same turn, which I didn't really mention when I talked about that. But Grave Robber, like the versatility is there. Like it's actually pretty insane when you think about it. You can just revive like a Mirror Force, so it doesn't matter that you've ended your turn. The enemy has to play against like the most powerful trap card in the game. So cards that like revive stuff basically may as well be as good as the best spell in the game or the best spell that's being currently played, I guess. Copycat. No, when you consider Grave Robber is only 10 deck cost more. Grave Robber is so much better than Copycat. Copycat is niche. It's useful for if you don't have Grave Robber for whatever reason, but once you have Grave Robber, this card becomes like completely obsolete. You could still theoretically revive stuff like Mirror Force, but you can't revive anything you put in your deck, which kind of makes it not very good. You can't like create cool combos with it or revive your own anything, you know, like you can stick Mimicat or Grave Robber into a deck with anything and just duplicate any of your cards, depending on the situation, but yeah, you can't really do that with Copycat. You just have to hope that your opponent plays something really good and then revive it. So, I'm not a big fan, honestly, but the potential is there. I can't say it's too low. Like, I don't really. Like, I think it's at the end here. I would probably rate it lower than these destruction effects, but it's hard to put it down here when I justify these being pretty average. Not terrible. I mean, that's why we have D here. Like for Cold Wave. Joey has Copycat, but he doesn't move it. He actually, like, once he plays it on the field, he doesn't move it at all. Crackly water bottle. Time Seal. Is this good? Not really. So if you're actually playing the game in the most optimal way possible, you would have the highest attack monster on the field. Like, as much as possible. That being said, if you play it first turn, and the enemy plays a monster, you can activate this and permanently spellbind it. And the only way to release it from spellbinding, if the enemy, for example, if the enemy doesn't have a Dragon Piper or Pot the Trick, which they probably don't, they're more likely to have something like Cursebreaker or Magical Neutralizing Forcefield. Then the only way to release like the monster from spellbinding, say if they stuck like 5 power-ups on it, is to dispel it and release all the power-ups on it. So, and you might come across this if you play against Panic. If you put a bunch of power-ups on a monster and pursue him with it, and then he activates Time Seal, then you're like, well, shit, I don't have Dragon Piper or Pop the Trick, so that monster's just gonna sit there, or I need to dump it or recycle it, or just leave it there. So, it has its use, but I'm not a big fan. Like, it looks cool. Cool picture, but I mean, all these spells have cool pictures, right? This game is really cool. So, here are all the terrain spells. Where do you guys think I'm gonna put these? I think I'm gonna order them while I'm here, right? So surely you'd have Toon at the top, like... Toon is something that if you have a deck built around it, then anyone who doesn't have a deck built around it plays with a 1000 attack and defense disadvantage, which is pretty crazy. Then I guess you could sub-rank them by like how many monsters are strong on certain types of terrain. I think Wasteland's the most, right? What have you got? Machines, zombies, rocks. Oh wait, no, forest. Why did I say wasteland? Forest has pyros, plants, insects, beasts, beast warriors. Is that 5? I think so. I don't know. I'm not really. I don't have my notes here, guys. Any NPC ever use Diane Keto? Yep, the final boss does. The final boss, the Skull Knight guy. Burning Land, like, it's... I don't know why you play Burning Land, right? It's like a niche thing, I don't know. I think terrain, honestly, is one of the best, like, advantages you can have casually. So, I would like to put it quite high. But I don't think activating a terrain spell is as good as something that can activate another terrain spell or something more powerful than a terrain spell. So I'm probably just going to have to put all of these in B. That being said, like, I do think that having your own advantage is better than, like, trying to just hard counter the enemy. So I'd probably put the terrains before these, like, destruction effect 50 deck cost cards. Because I think these are really good. Like, terrain is so good. Terrain and power-ups will win you games. That's how Duels of the Roses works. Yep. There's a lot to talk about, but we have to get through them one by one, guys. I don't even know if Burning Land is a reptile, right? I mean, what if you played, no joke, Toon Alligator with the Toon World terrain? I'm not even joking because I think the optimal reptile deck has water monsters with, like, use Aqua Chorus and Sebek's Blessing. We'll talk about that when we get to those cards. But, like, if you start buffing the fuck out of your Toon Alligator and it's on Toon, it becomes pretty scary. Like, if you think about that 1,000 attack defense deficit that otherwise wouldn't happen, suddenly Toon Alligator has 1,000 more attack against anything, so it's basically an 1,800 attack monster, plus whatever you put on it, plus the Serpentine Princess. Okay, well, let's continue. Labyrinth Wall. Oh my god, this card is just hilarious. What purpose do you have to play Labyrinth Wall over other cards, you might ask? How good actually is Labyrinth Wall? Well, like, I don't even know. I don't know, guys. Help me. Labyrinth Wall. Like, try and justify a use. Try and tell me how this is not a terrible spell. 35 deck cost. And you create a brick. Like, what strat are you going to do with it? Oh, I know. Let's take 3 turns to play... Oh, wait, no. Yeah, 3 turns. Yeah, you activate Labyrinth Wall, you play Shadow Ghoul, you move on to the Labyrinth, and then you activate Sword and Shield. You take 3 turns to play a 3,000 attack monster, which you could just do if you had, like, 2,500 attack monsters and increased strength for same type friendlies. This card is not good. But at least it has, like, at least there's some purpose to it. It's better than destroying the weakest monster type in the game. Like, you know, a monster that you can just beat by playing the game casually against a strategy that literally cannot beat any other deck. But you know what that means? magical labyrinth. It has to be lower than this, because if there's no labyrinth on the field, this is literally useless. Like, this card is... I know it's 10 deck cost, but... 10 deck cost, like, that's a power-up. Why would you have this instead of a power-up? Unless you're playing casually against, like, not just Labyrinth Ruler, but, like, you can use it to beat Solomon, but if there's no Labyrinth on the field, it does nothing. Oh yeah, I didn't even include some of these other destruction ones. Fuck. Damn, I forget how many of these there were. Let's put the high attack monster types, like, just after the machines, I think. Spellcasters are pretty nasty. Like, I think these are... Phew. Yeah, they're up there. Dust Tornado. Wing Beasts I don't think are as good as some of these other archetypes. Maybe not even as good as Warriors. I don't know. Birdface is terrible. So, like, their main support card is just a shit card. Is that all those? Oh, this one, yep. Fiends are quite powerful, so they're definitely up there. Oh, yeah, what do you guys think of Fisher, right? Again, like, we'll get there. Like, we're talking about... Alright. Raigeki. Alright. Raigeki is one of these cards where it's like... It's not as good as it should be, but it's still really good. This card kind of makes a card like Time Seal look like a joke. So... Yeah, I'm feeling an A on this, because it's not always going to perfectly line up that it's going to devastate all your opponent's cards. But it's pretty much, unless the enemy has Magic Jammer, but of course we're looking at all these cards as if we're, like, not worry about that, obviously, because it would be an individual, like, every card can be judged like that. Like... There's no Magic Jammer, you play Raigeki right in front of the enemy's strongest card, you're guaranteed to kill it, right? So at the least, this just kills whatever you want, right? That's the idea of this card. You just see the enemies, like, pursuing you with a 4,000 attack card. You just fucking play Raigeki there, and it's just dead, and anything that was behind it that happened to be a monster is also dead. So, yeah. The fact that this always clears pretty much the same amount of tiles is also pretty cool. Like, it's never really objectively shit. It's just not always super effective, but it's always effective in its own right. I have to put this in A tier. Right? Like, it's still, like... Time Seal spellbinds the highest attack monster on the field. Raigeki kills a card that you want it to. Like, that's just what it is. This one, man. Heavy Storm. This is really good. This is... I almost think this is S. I'm not even joking. Like, this is... It's a spicy meatball version of Dark Hole. It's... It's just, like... Okay, if you don't play spells or traps, you just use this and you just wipe out everyone who doesn't have magic jammers. Like, imagine, you just... If you're playing against a slow strategy, which you have to be if they're playing a lot of spells and traps, right? You just need to play Royal Decree and then activate Heavy Storm. And then everything on their field that isn't a monster is just fucking gone. And there's, like, barely any penalty to you. If they took, like, 5 seconds to set up all their spells, not 5 seconds, 5 turns, then you took 2 to just wipe them all out. So, in the situation of a slow strategy, say there's no white hole, like this cheese strategy is banned or whatever, it's not a real thing, or you actually deliberately want to do damage, like you play a stock defense and just attack their monsters, I don't know. I think it's A. Like, I don't think it's as good as Dark Hole, but it is really a special card. Like, it's really, really good. I don't know if it's really... But, like, just... It's just a finishing move card. That's why I rate it so highly. You activate this, you don't have to worry about mirror forces or anything. If this activates successfully, you can just go in for the finishing move. Which is probably going to be a big deal in a duel, right? This isn't a trap card tier list, so Royal Decree, Mirror Wall, save that discussion for when we do the trap card one. Harpy's Feather Duster. This one is not good. Oh. So would you say this is quite literally the Raigeki spell variant? So at best, this kills one spell or trap you want on the field. It's completely obsolesced by Heavy Storm. In the case of comparing Raigeki to Dark Hole, Raigeki is still always good. Like, in a situation where you don't want to play Dark Hole, it's useful. But there's, like, no situation where you'd want to play Heavy Storm instead of... Harpy's Feather Duster instead of Heavy Storm. Unless you had, like, 5 spells out in the field or something, but, like, why would you clear the spells, you know what I mean? I think it's a B for sure. The thing about, like... This isn't just obsolesced by Heavy Storm, it's also obsolesced by a card we're going to talk about a little bit later. Life point recovery cards. Oh, baby. Alright. So let's try and reshuffle these. So this is the order from best to worst, right? So, Diane Keto, the Cure Master. Keto Diet? Diane Keto, I don't know. Keto, I guess is how you would pronounce it. This resets your life points to 4,000. Is that really that good when you think about it? Let's say you have a Niwatori on the field, or 2... or a Frog the Jam, or 2, or 1 of each, you multiply anything by 4. It multiplies life point recovery by double, and then it doubles it. It doubles that original doubled amount, so it actually works out to be 4. It's not 3 by this 4, so... You can recover 8,000 life points with Soul the Pure in that situation. Obviously, Diane Keto is... like, it's a potential 3,999 life point recovery, right? But that's kind of its limit, and it's not always going to be that way. In the situation where you actually want more than 4,000 life points, it's useless, and cards like Goblin's Secret Remedy or Soul the Pure are a lot better. Like, you can just activate 2 of these, and you double your life points, whereas... Dying Keto, you have to take a lot of damage for it to be effective, and that's very dangerous. So, I don't think this card is really that incredible. I don't even know if it's that much better than any of these cards. I'm aware, like, casually, I'd rate some of these cards in a different order, based on the deck cost and stuff, but... matter of fact is they're all spells and they all cost 0 summoning points to play, so I can't really say that Miriam Curry is nearly as good as something that's 10 times more efficient to play in the same turn. So I have to order it basically like this. This could be a potential 4,000, but like these cards could be potentially more than this, but it is a Destiny Draw option. The game gives it to you as a Destiny Draw. When you drop below 1,000 life points potentially and you don't meet other requirements, then you get this and you go back to 4,000 life points. You can't actually affect this value this is not affected by like any other card. If you try and double this recovery, it just keeps it at 4,000. So, gonna stick them in B. I think life point recovery is overrated. Getting a bit big now, huh? Look at this B tier. Every spell is B tier, right? Ryoku's an equip. Ah, Sparks. Right, this is S tier. No, I'm just kidding. So, life point damage. Burn damage is interesting because it's basically the opposite of life point recovery, right? And the difference is, well, apart from the obvious, the way life point recovery works is like multiply based, whereas damage like all burn damage and just in general damage is like instant based when you think about burn strategies, right? So a heal strategy would be something. This wouldn't work in the base game because the life points are capped to like 9999, but like if you had a bunch of Frog the Jams or Niwatoris with like an extremely high defense and you just activated Soul the Pures, fuck, how much would that even do? How much life points would you even recover from Soul the Pure if you had 5 of those in face-up defense mode? Holy crap. 64,000, I think. Anyways, that's not how burn damage works at all. So the burn damage, like the best strategy you could do, right, if you were doing a burn strategy, would be to have Cruels in face-up attack defense, but you can only have 3 out. So you have 3 Cruel in face-up defense, and then 2 Midnight Fiend in face-up defense, and then all instances of damage deal 800 more than normal. Remember, in both cases, life point recovery, those effects work for you as well, and when you have those burn effects, or just damage effects in general, they work either player. But if you have a strategy like that, Sparks does like 850, Hinatama does 900, you just activate all these spells, and suddenly they just become tremendous fires. But under a microscope, how good really is burn damage? Just Desserts, this does 300 damage per card the enemy has, so the cap for this is 3,000. If you successfully activate 2 of these when the enemy has 6 cards at least on the field, you can kill them if they haven't recovered any life points. So this has to stay like at the front because its potential is just way higher. If you had like the 3 Cruels and 2 Midnight Fiends, then Tremendous Fires would do 1,800. But you only need 2 Cruels to have a 3-hit kill with Tremendous Fire, so... And even if you did that, like, if you had 3 Cruels in your deck, and 3 Tremendous Fires, and, like, 3 Solomon's Lawbook, you would lose if the enemy recovered life points, and you'd have to take 6 turns to execute that strategy, so... yeah. Whoops. So, how good is Burn? I can't say it's any better than Life Point Recovery. Actually, you know what? I can. Because, as I mentioned before, Life Point Recovery is capped at 9999, so all these spells are just capped. Like, there's basically... they've been nerfed before a patch was even in the game, or is ever going to be in the game. Whereas these things are just like, they all do a bunch of damage. And remember, you start with 4,000 life points, so... But again, like, against life point recovery strategies, they're actually quite useless. It's very hard to do. Like, these cards can't actually do 9999 damage, so I'm actually probably going to have to put them below the life point recovery cards, now that I think about it. But, you know, can I put Tremendous Fire lower than Murion Curry? Probably not. I mean, if you think about it, look, these... I can put these spells, like, side to side and determine which one's better. Right? Like, these are kind of the equivalents. you'll notice that, yeah, all the life point recovery cards actually outweigh or outmatch the burn damage equivalent, but the deck cost differs as well. So, like, Soul the Pure, 2000 heal is obviously better than a 1000 burn, and it's less deck cost. So. Alright, so what do you guys think of Swords of Revealing Light? The problem I have with this is I feel like it's not as good as people think it is, but it is good. I'm not saying it's not good. I can't put it lower than A tier, that's for sure. No way. It has to be at least A tier, but I don't know if I can put it in S. The problem with spellbinding is if you spellbind a Mirror Force, it doesn't do anything. If you're actually attacking the enemy, I mean, you can flip it face up, but then you have to get rid of it, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just comparing this to Dark Hole again. There's no reason to play Swords of Revealing Light over Dark Hole in a situation that actually wins you the game. If you play a slow strategy, the enemy, like, and again, I guess you can say this for Dark Hole as well. Like, if you just spellbind their stuff, then the next turn they can play something. The difference with Dark Hole and Swords, however, is if the enemy next turn has, like, magical neutralizing Forcefield and they activate it after Swords, then you've just flipped all their stuff face up. And that might not be that big of an issue. Still a really good card. I don't know where to slot it, though. Where should we slot it? Where should we put it? It does not destroy your own cards. You know what? I think it is. It might be S. I just think about it now. Like, it's a global. I say global as in, like, it covers all the tiles, like the entire map. It's a global 3-turn stun. And it also gives you all the information on the enemy cards. Yeah, I think I justified its place up here, didn't I? I hate it because the real life card, like, it sucks. But then I think about this card in the game, and it's actually pretty good. I don't use it a lot, which is why I tend to think it's overrated. But the reason why I don't use cards normally, like these ones, is because they're so powerful. Raigeki is up there as well, but Raigeki, I think, is only like that, like, in the sense that against the AI, you can just rail, like, their entire 5 monsters in one, like, very easily. And you know what? I think it was a good decision to put it here, because up next is Dark Piercing Light. And I think this is really good. Like, this is A tier, so I couldn't put these in the same. No way. I think Dark Piercing Light's actually a really good spell. Let me praise this, and also this will justify flipping cards face up for both of these as a property. First of all, it gives information on your opponent's cards. That's super amazing. Second, it disables flip effects. That's actually a pretty big deal because they're some of the most powerful effects in the game. Third, it disables the movement of trap cards. Well, literally it does that. If you flip a trap card up, it can't be moved anymore. And if you flip up an enemy spell, they can't move it without it being played, or they can't move it without it being activated, without flipping it down and then moving it. So the fact that this is 15 deck cost is insane. Like, if this was 30 or 50 deck cost, I probably would still be putting it here, but you can get this from Taya, like, at the start of the game. It's very difficult. She doesn't like to play it often, but it is possible. And this is, like, one of the strongest cards in a casual playthrough, apart from the blatantly overpowered ones, like all these other contemporaries. So I really like Dark Piercing Light. So yeah, this is actually, that works out because this is a Dark Piercing Light that stuns everything, it flips up. For 3 turns. Like, that's crazy. Darkness Approaches has to be in here. Has to be an S. This is probably like one of the most broken cards in the game, right? If I include it without certain degenerate strategies, it's still very, very high because it just allows you to, as I said, with flipping things up, it allows you to reuse flip strategies, flip effects, and those sorts of strategies. Like, for example, Magician of Faith, you can, if you have 2 of those, you can keep flipping them up and reviving this, and infinitely revive literally any other spell in the game. So this is like super broken. You might think, well, let's not rate it under the fact that it has a 1 broken strategy, but the justification for this card and its use is to reuse flip effects. That's pretty much the entire reason it's in the game, right? So I can't say this is good because you can use flip effects and then not actually take into account the fact that you can do things like that with revival cards like Mask of Darkness and stuff like that. So yeah, this has to be S, right? Like, it's just, and it's like, again, I talk about Dark Hole being broken with White Hole. This is just broken with like most flip effect cards. You can even do the crazy stuff. You know, the classic Underlord Tico, Muka Muka Darkness Approaches, and you just get 9999 attack. One of the faster ways to get 9999 attack in the game. So you know, that's just another thing you can say about this card. Okay. Eye of Truth. Oh my. We've got a bunch of interesting spells here, don't we? We just talked about some of the best ones in the game, and now there's a bunch of like really bad ones. This one just shows you the enemy hand. For me personally, this card is D tier because I pretty much know all the enemy cards. I have a vague idea of what they're going to play based on the summoning power they have. For example, say Seto Kaiba first turn he plays a card, you know the max it could be is 1900 unless there's an equip on it, and if he doesn't equip, if he does use an equip, you can check the graveyard to see what type of equip it was, and that helps you determine what monster is. And you can do that with like any opponent in the game once you know enough about it. So I don't know, man. Like, it's just, once you know the enemy cards, it's useless. Even if you're playing casually, this is like C tier at best, right? This is, I don't even know if it's any more like than these cards. I don't know what place to put it at. I have to rate cards on a very vague basis, but I can't really justify it being... you know what? Actually, I think it's better than Dragon Capture Jaw. I mean, dragons are some of the strongest cards in the game, right? But this card isn't very good, so that's why it's in C tier. And this card, this card basically does nothing, right? Maybe it is C. What do you guys think? I mean, for me, personally, it's D, but I think if you don't know everything about the game, not saying that I do, I just know what, like, the enemy's gonna play. Humble bragging as you do. If you don't know that stuff, then this card, like, at best is, like, C. I remember playing casually with this when I started playing the game, and I thought it was pretty cool, but it's really not that great. Because eventually you just kind of find out the hard way what cards the enemy has anyways. The Inexperienced Spy. Okay. Think about why you would actually want to know what the enemy spells, traps, and stuff are, right? Probably so you can go for a direct attack. That makes sense. There's no reason to ever play this like to find out if the enemy has a trap or not instead of Dark Hole. Because if you activate this and the enemy does have a trap next to their deck leader and you can't attack, then you can't do anything. But if you just Dark Hole or Heavy Storm, you don't have to worry about that if that's successful. If they had a Magic Jammer to block either of those spells, it will block this as well. So again, that's why we're never really taking the Magic Jammer into account. So Inexperienced Spy, not good. To be fair, like, again, it's the concept of giving information about the enemies should really... These cards should ring true to each other. It should be the same. Roughly. So, knowing what the enemy has played versus knowing what the enemy can potentially play. And again, I guess this is better because then you know what the enemy has played in the next couple turns. Well, most likely because you see their hand, and then you know the same order of cards that they have. So this is probably better. If you activate this and the enemy has just like a bunch of spells or just like no traps, like it doesn't actually do anything, so... And if it does activate traps, then you just know where you can't attack. So, yeah. Eternal Drought. I did forget about this. So this is the fish one, right? Yep. This has to be at the bottom of these other ones, for sure. I don't even know if I can put these above these cards. It might have to sit down here. I mean, being able to actually kill fish is better than not being able to kill rocks. Being able to spellbind the highest attack cards in the game, if they're not defended, is probably better than being able to kill cards that nobody plays. So, that's my logic for that order there. Fisher. What do you guys think, huh? I can't wait for everyone to say how bad it is. You guys really think this sucks? You guys really think this sucks that bad? This card, in my opinion, is better than a lot of the other cards you're seeing on the screen right now. It's better than Time Seal. Its deck cost is way too high. I disagree. So, here's the thing. Here's the thing about Fisher. Consider Fisher used optimally. First of all, a situation where you have no cards on the field. Or no monsters on the field, rather. You have no monsters on the field. You're guaranteed to kill an enemy monster. If they only have one monster on the field, this is actually guaranteed to kill their strongest monster on the field. So, I know that is a bit of a stretch, but say if you play this first turn, the enemy hyper buffs like a 4-star Jiraigumo, next turn you can just Fisher it. It doesn't matter what card that is, how much attack it has. Even if he played like a 8,000 attack card on the first turn, you could just Fisher it. Which is pretty insane when you think about it. It also is a somewhat reliable counter strategy for things such as Cocoon of Evolution, funnily enough. Like, a lot of people think this card is totally useless, but... Well, think about this. Like, if the enemy has 3 monsters on the field and you have none, but you have 3 fishes on the field, you could just activate 3 of them. I mean, that's a stretch, right? You're not going to take 3 turns to do that. That's not very realistic, but... say if you stuck this in a deck, like, if you were trying to draw blanks, it would be pretty low on the list, but it would definitely be above Time Seal. This is B tier, definitely. I'm just not sure where to put it in. I think the potential is through the roof. It's just very situational. It's definitely B, but I'm not 100% sure where. Yeah, Fisher killed your own monster when you were 8 years old and you first played it. You know, it's probably Friday night, you finished your McDonald's, and you used Fisher against Weevil, and you killed your own Fiend that had like 300 attack that you put in defense mode. Yeah, like if you're actually pressured and outnumbered, Fissure isn't any more useful than any like trap card or any good spell, so that sucks. But if you open it first turn, the enemy opens with a strong monster, you can Fissure it. You can also say the same about Dark Hole, which is the same deck cost, which is again why a lot of these cards are A and S tier, but Fissure is not. I do personally think it is better than Time Seal though. You can always Fissure and then Monster Reborn. That's better than just Time Seal. Fairy Meteor Crush. So this is basically a very bad Dark Hole. This destroys, like, approximately 1/5 of the field instead of all cards on the field. It's not very good. I don't know why you would ever use this over any other 50 deck cost spell card. That being said, if you compare it to Fissure, if you have like no cards on the field or you're really outnumbered and you just play a Fairy Meteor Crush, it's probably a better result than Fissure, right? It could be potentially devastating, could be potentially useless. It's very hard to rank a card that's RNG, but even like, unless this goes critically well, it's not good. So I can't put it in A. I don't know if it is even B. If it's B, yeah, I guess it's somewhere around like Fissure and Time Seal. You know what? I feel like putting Time Seal in B now because this can permanently spellbind something that's 9/9/9 attack, but then again, so can Paralyzing Potion, and that's a third of the deck cost. Fairy Meteor Crush, like it's just not very good, isn't it? It's less reliable than something like Fissure when you use it correctly. This isn't really something you use correctly. It's just no way would I would never put this in A. 1/5 of the field is nothing. Like even if you activated 3 of these, that would take you 3 turns. You're not even guaranteed. Like you're guaranteed to not even clear like half of the field, considering you're pretty much guaranteed to hit some of the same tiles between the 3 uses, right? It is worse than Fissure. Fairy Meteor Crush gets a C. Ooh, change of heart. Ooh. Alright, well. Definitely S tier. So this card is broken because it's like Brain Control but better. And Brain Control is already good. So, like the amount of uses you can use for Mind Control. We'll talk about both of these at the same time, actually, just Mind Control. So, controlling the enemy's strongest monster or a monster that's well positioned to cause a lot of damage or devastation is a complete game changer. The enemy plays 4,000 attack monster, a more efficient thing than destroying it and reviving it with, you know, any destruction card in Monster Reborn or Mimicat is to just change of heart. You don't get it back after the turn, but you can say attack directly with it and then you can play a Monster Reborn on top of it, dump it to the graveyard, and then revive it, and now you have it permanently with its base attack. But like you can attack again with that. You can just enable so many strategies with Mind Control. It's completely absurd. The difference between these 2 cards is obviously Change of Heart lets you choose which monster. So not only this is way more powerful because you have the option of like just choosing the enemy card that's like right next to their deck leader and attacking them, but this just gives you information for free. Like it's already this absurdly good card, and then it lets you flick through the enemy's card and see what position their monsters are. It doesn't actually give you information on their monsters specifically, but it tells you which cards on the field, which of their cards on the field are monsters and where they are. So, and that's for free. That's on top of this already brokenly powerful effect. So this goes like, this has to be like a step above Brain Control. Brain control, I guess it's not too far below because the mind control potential is still very, very strong, and a big credit to both cards. But if you think about enemy having like a bunch of monsters face down, you don't know which is the strongest one, brain control automatically selects that for you even though you don't have that information. So these cards are both very good in their own right. I just think Change of Heart is better more consistently. Brain control's a bit more niche, but they're both so powerful. Hey Blake, sorry about the response. The way I have things set up is I'm not looking at chat as much. Hey Robert. Is it better than Darkness Approaches? I don't think so. Because again, like, these are fucking powerful effects, but it does rely on your opponent actually having a very powerful monster when you think about it. But that is obviously extremely likely and, like, pretty much the point of the game, right? Is just bring out this really high damage stuff as early as possible. Morning read. So it's just crazy. Like, this mind control is just one of the most powerful effects in the game. It also gives you an advantage you may not have on any other given turn. If both of you have 5 monsters out in the field, you can do this and you'd have 6 for a turn when they only have 4. That makes things a lot more interesting. Magical Neutralizing Forcefield. This is like one of my favorite spells in the game. This is nuts. So talking about like game theory of Duels of the Roses, terrain and power-ups are like 2 of the biggest things in the game. I say terrain because movement advantage I think is a big deal. Like you move 2 spaces or you don't. Like, so anyone who moves 2 spaces is literally going to beat anyone who doesn't, right? Power-ups are going to beat anyone who can't beat that damage. And if you assume both players play power-ups, it's hard to argue if Magical Neutralizing Forcefield is that good because it can be destructive, but it is possible to play nature effects in the game. You have examples of face-up defense monsters that increase all monsters' attack and defense by 500 each, such as Castle of Dark Illusion for Fiends, Molten Behemoth for Pyros, and Fairy King Truesdale for plants. There's also others that do 300, like Robotic Knight and Cyber Commander for machines, and there's also Birdface for Winged Beast, but they don't really compare. When you consider having 3 each of them, 1500 attack, nature boost, you have like the types I talked about, the first 3 examples that have the 500 attack and defense increase, also have deck leader attack and defense. Then you have terrain card. Holy shit, now all of your pyros or plants or whatever you're playing has an extra 2500 attack and defense that can't be dispelled. If you play a strategy like that and then you play Magical Neutralizing Forcefield, this is like an S tier card. Any other situation, it's like an A tier. You can activate this before you power stuff up. It's still good. If you play this in conjunction with Swords of Revealing Light or Dark Piercing Light, this destroys all your opponent's trap cards. Like, it's crazy. You wouldn't play this immediately after Swords of Revealing Light, obviously, because you dispel the enemy Spellbind, but for 10 deck cost, like, this can get rid of Ryoku, this can destroy Mirror Force, like, there's always merit to really low value cards that can do stuff like crazy. You know, I want to put it in the bottom S. This is one of my favorite cards in the game, because as, like, compared to anything else here, its deck cost is so low, like 10. There's no way I put it below A. Yeah, it's just like, yeah, this might be... You think about it, Royal Decree counters all other traps. This counters all activated traps and Royal Decree. So, I mean, it doesn't counter Magic Jammer. Jammer counters this. But again, we've already made this argument. We're not talking about Magic Jammer here. Just, the enemy activates, like, you put something in defense mode, the enemy has Gorgon's Eye activates, you can flip this face up, it dispels your card from being spellbound, and it kills Gorgon's Eye. You play Dark Piercing Light, you play Magical Neutralizing Forcefield, you kill all the enemies' trap cards. It's just weird. Like, it's just a field-wide curse breaker that also kills face-up trap cards. Like, it's really, really interesting. Um, and another very strange property about it, actually, this ignores any form of, like, monster immunity. So, and this is just, like, this is obviously not intended, but it's just for free on this card. So, if you're playing against dragons and they have Lord of D, remember how we talked about this card being useless? Not saying Lord of D is, like, super good, but theoretically, let's just say people playing Lord of D and a bunch of powerful dragons and stacking all these equips on their dragons. You can activate Magical Neutralizing Force Field and it will dispel all the enemy dragons back to their base attack through Lord of D. If you try it, it will say, like, the Lord of D box at the bottom corner of the screen will say Lord of D, as if it did something, but you go to the attack and defense of those dragons, and you will see they've all been reset. So, yeah. I do feel like this is more of an enabler. It's so powerful. I feel like I need to rate it higher, but it's difficult because we're dealing with some powerful stuff here, right? I can't really... I don't know if I can put in S when I have these spells here. This is me trying to humble myself not putting an S here, because I would love to, because I love this spell. It's like my favorite spell in the game. I like how it looks. I think it's really cool. It's 10 deck costs, so it's so valuable. But yeah. Okay. Let's move some cards over. Well, actually, you do this. So we have, like, all these 10 deck cost spell cards in line with each other. How good are these? So, this is like a power-up with reverse efficiency, right? Power-ups are obviously just always good, but the best use of power-up is to stack multiple of them on one monster, right? That's the best way to use power-ups, just create some really high-attack monsters. These are the opposite. They're built around having multiple monsters out and using this as a way to basically play. It's crazy when you think about it. Like, theoretically, these are really good in a strategy that involves having a lot of monsters out in the field and playing it slowly. You get 1800 damage out of any of these if you activate 3 of them. So, but no, not just 1800. That's 1800 for 5 monsters if you have 5 monsters out. So, yeah, it's crazy. If you have 5 monsters out, you basically, one of these gives you 6 power-ups worth of attack and defense in one turn, right? So, they're not as weak as you'd think. The only problem is they're basically, like, useless unless you use them optimally. They're all useless unless you use them optimally, because if you use them even suboptimally, there's no reason to have this instead of another 500 attack power-up. It takes you one more turn to give 100 more attack. And think about playing cards out of the hand. Why would I ever want to have a machine and 3 limiter removals instead of a machine and 3 machine conversion factories? So these, I think, go into the C tier. Again, this isn't totally based off of a casual playthrough, so this is more based on how useful they would be in, like, as many situations all weighed up together, right? I kind of, like, you kind of rate these archetypes and think, which one of these archetypes is most likely to value a card like this. This one in a slow tank strategy, maybe. Oh, yeah, these in a slow tank strategy for reptiles would be really good. All the good reptiles are water, with the exception of Serpent Marauder, which is a nature effect card, face up defense, so you don't have to worry about that card anyways. But if you're running like a slow turtle reptile deck with Serpent Marauder, you can play these two, and yeah. Having 6 of these in a deck is like a crazy thing. If you just bring out like even 3 monsters within the first 3 turns and then just start playing these and the enemy doesn't have an answer to it, it's a free win, but that's, again, you have to play these like optimally for them to be that good. Aqua Chorus, I mean, obviously, this is just as good as it is for reptiles as this card is, but obviously being useful in and of its own right. And then I think after that we basically have the archetypes that would value using these. Like, I don't know, I think like machines are stronger than plants, but plants are more likely to use them, so I don't really know how to rate them in that regard, so they're just going to be clumped like that. Again, we need to think about some spells in... Yeah, Arco Chorus is better than the others, but it's not... I don't know if I... You know what? I think a lot of these cards are better than Breath of Light. But... And the reason why I put Breath of Light low, again, is because the situation of this working out is so low that it may as well just be in D tier, right? Yeah. Because, yeah, rocks have improved resistance for same type friendly, so this will never resolve. And this, no one plays dinosaurs, they're the worst type. You can just kill them without even playing this card. Windstorm for Tarkle, probably the least likely. I mean, Wing Beasts are a weird archetype. They're basically just a shit version of dragons, so these are like one of the worst archetypes in the game, but they're still better than dinosaurs. That's how bad dinosaurs are. Yellow Luster Shield. This card has to sit within these other 10 deck cost buff cards. It's definitely different. 900 increase of defense on all your monsters. Activate 3 of these. Play Shield and Sword. And yeah, but I mean, that takes you 4 turns, so... Yep. You can also enter the password for Drag Capture, I'm pretty sure. The thing about... Alright, the problem is... Yellow Luster Shield is not going to be this insanely good card because it's good when you activate 3 of them and then activate something else. You can't rate it too highly because of that, but we can compare it to these other cards that require... Their whole purpose is to have multiple monsters out on the field to be effective. So we can compare that to this. This is effective after you have a bunch of high defense monsters out on the field, and then you can do other things with it, so... But if you're playing a purely attack-based strategy, and for example, if you're playing a strategy where your monsters have a lot more attack and defense, then you wouldn't use this at all. This is like a niche thing where high defense decks can benefit from it, but... High defense deck is like a worse archetype than any of these things that are actually archetypes. Good and casual, but I'm not too impressed. I do think the card is cool, and I think 900 is a big stat, but like in a game where there's stuff like Hourglass of Courage, Mystical Elf, Serpentine Princess, it's not so significant, in my opinion. Stop Defense. I love this card. This card, I think, is pretty damn cool. The problem is it as good as I think it is? I don't think so. I think I put this card on a pedestal. I saw you retract your message. You don't think you can retract messages, but I saw you say it was D tier. Phew. Yeah, like, I'm not going to put this in A or S. No, block attack is a trap card. This is stop defense. So this switches all cards on the field to attack mode. So I think the big thing to look about with this card is stopping strategies that revolve around defense, obviously. The thing is, it's only temporary, so I think the way you actually do use this card is in a one-turn situation. Would it always be useful? Probably not, but in a situation where you can't attack the enemy deck leader directly, it's a matter of... Yeah, it's like... I'm just trying to think about a situation where stop defense would actually be a game-ending card that's more valuable than anything else. I mean, all the top cards, S and A, it doesn't even compare to. Like, S and A are head and shoulders above everything else right now. I think all the burn cards are F tier. You know what? It does feel weird putting sparks and stuff in B tier, but when I talk about anyone who had an optimal burn strategy having 3 Cruels out on the field and 2 Midnight Fiend, then suddenly every burn card is a tremendous fire, pretty much. They do definitely belong pretty closely together, but... Again, we're sort of thinking about all situations. In the competitive scene, burn cards probably be fucking terrible. Unless you had maps that had a shit ton of Labyrinth in them and, like, no one had Labyrinth break, but that would not make sense. But in the terms of people have 4,000 life points and rarely recover life points, or don't usually recover life points straight away, they can still do a lot of damage. And if you have stuff like... You think about a casual just desserts in the hand when you get a direct attack on the enemy and they have like 5 cards out, you can just wipe them out. So, yeah. Stop defense, I think B or C. Stop defense's ability to cancel face-up defense effects is useful, but it's only temporary, and the only reason why you would do that is to effectively stop a nature effect from happening. But if you think about a lot of the really good situations, it doesn't work out. Because if it's like Ancient Tree of Enlightenment, Ancient Tree of Enlightenment, you wouldn't want to change that to attack mode, because then if the enemy did have a trap card, it would now activate. There's also Temple of Skulls. If that's in face-up defense mode, you can't activate spells, so you can't activate this. So you can't actually use this card to counter that. But against strategies like nature effects, face-up defense mode, it's pretty devastating. Like, imagine you're actually against a lot of Castle of Dark Illusions, and then you just activate this. It does have its uses, and I think it's more reliable than a card like Fairy Meteor Crush, so I'd probably rate it higher than Fairy Meteor Crush. But its uses are limited, I would say. What do you mean it beats Cocoon of Evolution? There's no Cocoon of Evolution here. Monster Recovery. You guys know about this? 5 deck cost. This card is one of the worst cards in the game. First of all, it's broken. If you activate more than one of these, you will never, ever, ever draw out the cards you activate after the first use. Actually, it breaks the end of your deck, so you never actually draw any of the cards you sucked in if you activate more than one of these. Anyways, apart from that terrible thing that ruins the card in the first place is already fucking terrible. So I think the idea they had when they were going for this card was if one of your cards get permanently spellbound or attacks into like Gravity Bind and loses half of its attack or whatever, or Mirror Wall, you can just play this and it goes back to your deck where you can just play it again and it's full attack, not spellbound. But the problem with that is it puts the cards you recover, the monsters you recover, to the bottom of your deck. And because there's no search cards in the game, you have to cycle through your entire deck to get back whatever you wanted from monster recovery. So, monster recovery is terrible. It's definitely D tier. One of the worst cards in the game, I would say. Just because it's broken. Even if it wasn't broken, I'd probably put it in D tier. Yeah, I think I would. One of the most like optimal uses of this is like, imagine you first draw like a really powerful card with 4 equips and play it, and the enemy spellbinds it or it hits Gravity Bind. You would use this, but then you've wasted all your equips. So the best use would probably be after activating a bunch of flip effects, but you've got Darkness Approaches for that. Call the Haunted is... it's very strange. Like, I can't rate this low at all because it's 1 deck cost and it's actually pretty neat. Turning all your monsters as zombies actually is pretty consistently good now that I think about it. This means that it'll make all of your cards strong on Wasteland or Yami. It means it won't be weak on anything except Mountain, and then of course Toon Terrain, obviously, unless it is a Toon card. Anyways, so 1 deck cost. Turn all your stuff to zombies, and think about a card like Curse of Dragon. Just turning the field into Wasteland, you turn something like Curse of Dragon into a zombie, then even though it takes you 2 turns, you basically have a 2000 base attack, 3-star Cyberstein, which is pretty insane. So the uses of this are actually pretty good. Not sure if I want to put it at the bottom of A or the top of B. But I think it's a really good card, honestly. You can play strategies that don't involve being strong on Yami or Wasteland, and then play this, and if the enemy plays strategies that are good on it, then you just play this. If the enemy plays, like, I don't know, fucking Pumpkin, then you can just play this. I'm not really taking into account availability. I'm literally just talking about how powerful a spell card is. Vaguely taking into account its deck cost. Well, I think I need to start wrapping this up because there's people over. And I can't really tell them to not talk, so... I'm just thinking where I want to put Shift, because I don't use this card a lot. I think I need to use Shift a lot more to fully grasp its potential. If you think, like, say if you've already attacked with a card and then you use Shift, you can't use it again. I'm pretty sure that's how it works, so... it's hard to stretch the potential of this past, like, especially compared against something like Monster Reborn. I don't know what else to really compare this to. It's like a really not good version of something like Monster Reborn, where you position, instead of positioning something from the graveyard onto a certain time on the field, you position your highest attack monster on the field to a certain part of the field. I don't think this is really that good, but I think it's better than some of these cards down here. I think it's better than Stop Defense. Sword and Shield. Again, I don't know if... this card is really not that great. Most of the time, almost all the time. If you play like a slow strategy and you're activating 3 Yellow Luster Shield, then... No, this is definitely not B. Well, actually it might be. Like, I think this is C. If you just think about, like, if most of the monsters on the field have their attacks and defense vaguely close to each other, this does, like, nothing. And again, I'm not talking about... A card isn't just suddenly good because it's good against one of the AIs. It's hard to rate against the AI because they're just shit. Unless you have like a full-on defense strategy and then you want to charge, then you won't really use this. And I think there's faster ways to get that amount of damage anyway, so... I don't really think it's very good at all. It does nothing, like, when you think about it. It vaguely does something if the enemy has, like, way higher attack than defense monsters, but even then, like, you're only really changing the value of the monsters. Taking a whole turn to do something like that, you start to consider what else you want to do on one turn, like destroying all their monsters, or, you know, giving yourself a huge field advantage would be a lot more advantageous. Solomon's Lawbook is a pretty controversial one, isn't it? Such a good stream idea. We're gonna have to check the VOD after this, because we're almost at the end. So Solomon's Lawbook, it's like the Pot of Greed of the game, right? The game doesn't have Pot of Greed or Graceful Charity because of the way the hand works. If you think about the, like, remember, this game has no search cards. You can't search through your deck for anything, so the only way to get through your deck is, like, drawing your cards as fast as possible, and the best way to do that is having a lot of, like, low summoning power stuff and Solomon's Lawbook. That way, every turn, you can just get rid of all the cards you don't want, or get to the cards you do want. Realistically, though, I think you can construct decks with, like, you can kind of make 13 card decks, just have 3 copies of 13 cards that you want, and then you're quite likely to draw any one of your 13 cards within the first couple turns. Well, not, you can't draw 13 cards in 2 turns, but like, some decks, I think a deck being constructed really well doesn't need Solomon's Lawbook to be effective, but it's still a really strong card in its own right. There's another thing about imagining being able to play 2 cards in the same turn with a Solomon's Lawbook, like if you set a Solomon's Lawbook and then activate it later on. That sounds amazing, right? But again, you do lose a turn to do that. That's what Solomon's Lawbook is. You take a turn to play it. That being said, if you play it face down, say the enemy assumes it's a trap or whatever, and you manage to be in a position to resolve an OTK because of it, like, it's a potential game-ending card, and it's one of the better ones. It's definitely a card you'd be playing towards the end of a game, which I think definitely makes it in the A tier. Yeah, I think it's definitely above B tier. Where does it go? Like, just think about final turn situation. Say if you know you have 3 Solomon's Lawbook in your decks, in your deck, not plural, and you're about to OTK, but you it's like you hadn't added any of these sets. Say you just draw one of these at the end of your hand. You have like a dragon, 1 power up, 2 cards you don't want, and then a Solomon's Lawbook. You dump the 2 cards you don't want, play Solomon's Lawbook, then you draw 3 more cards. Which hopefully they're power ups, or maybe it's one more power up and like a Solomon's Lawbook, or just a Solomon's Lawbook. Then you can try again, and you can basically use copies of Solomon's Lawbook that are sitting in your deck to craft an optimal hand to finish out a game. So it's a really strong card. Magic Drain. Magic Drain is actually an interesting card compared to a lot of these. It's almost like a counter game ender. I mean, considering you can do optimal strategies that would have like 3 or less summoning stars in the hand, being able to play like twin-headed Thunder Dragon with 3 equips and do 4,000 damage, or got the hiccups. Yeah, just consider, like, even if you drain all the opponent's summoning power, it still wouldn't really do much. But you can also drain the opponent's summoning power if they have nothing. If they were playing a deck where they never burnt through summoning power, then, like, and I kind of think that's the optimal way to play, right? If your deck is mostly constructed of low-level monsters and you can just always fusion summon stuff. If the enemy steals, like, even 7 or 8 is enough, even if they have, like, none to guarantee they're able to play, like, one of the strongest cards in the hand. If they play this just to recover summoning power and just play like the strongest card that can possibly be played out of the hand and win the game with it, that's pretty damn special. This is definitely a game-ending card, and it also has other strategies such as just spamming it and the enemy never having summoning power and you always having it. So I think this is an A tier. I don't know if it's as good as some of these other cards. Because again, it doesn't destroy anything. A lot of these other cards destroy stuff or just have like abusive measures. This one is just a powerful, like a very powerful spell. Not quite on the caliber of the S tier. Not abusable like any of these other cards. You know, I am considering putting Burn in C, but I would never put these cards in D. I would never put Final Flame next to these cards. Never. But looking at it, being in B, some of these don't make sense. I mean, it really just started with me putting the better ones in B and then the lower ones, like, keeping them with. But I guess if these more valuable ones are in B, then the others should be in C. It's just hard to really know a cutoff point. New tier. Do I really have to? I mean, I don't think I have to. I got 5 tiers. Like, how many tiers do you need? Dimension Hole. So, you said before it's like moving your weak point, but technically, if you're trying to close out a game or whatever, this is your strong point. You being able to play cards is where you're going to be able to make the most actions and the most plays, while also obviously being the most vulnerable one. If you prepared, like, imagine, I don't know, this would be a very strange strategy. It's something you probably wouldn't think about, but you can gradually move a dimension hole up towards the enemy and sit back and defend it with trap cards like Mirror Forces and stuff. Mirror Forces would be the best for this, because the enemy, just no matter what they did, whether they're attacking, trying to get those cards or kill your deck leader, they just all die, so that the Dimension Hole and your deck leader stay protected. After a few turns where you got the Mirror Forces out, you activate Dimension Hole, and now your deck leader is right next to theirs, and you have 3 Mirror Forces out, like so. Just attack them directly, and then they have a lot of hits to trade to be able to actually kill you, unless they have Royal Decree, then obviously you die, but So, Dimension Hall, I think, is very high. Definitely up here. The property of being able to rush your opponent. Yes, but this isn't about. Well, I'm not going to say a card is strong because you can easily get 3 from Joey's when, it's actually RNG if he plays it or not. It could be the last card in his deck like 10 times in a row. And, if the enemy doesn't play Force, then it's pretty much useless. The justification for this being so low is that if your enemy doesn't play any strong spells or traps, it's useless. You can't really look at any of these cards under a microscope, which is why I really should lower some of these spell life point ones. The thing about, Just Desserts is above the rest because it has, a potential 3,000 damage cap. That's realistically... It's if your enemy has at least 4 cards on the field, it already is better than Tremendous Fire, so... But I do think these can go... I don't know, Diane Keto, again, I talked about that, where it's the whole point of it is to recover 4,000 life points, or up to 4,000. But it can only ever do that. You can't boost any more than that, so any life point recovery strat that had face-up defense monsters could just get max life points every single turn. Just 999 on recovery every single turn if they wanted to, using, cards other than this. So it's really hard for me to place these. Well, you can actually legally get all the spell cards in this game. Dimension Hall. It is definitely stronger than Magic Drain. So it's definitely going in A tier. I'm just not... if this is a speed run fucking list, this goes up here. If this is if you're playing an aggro deck, this is such a good card. It's also used defensively, which I think is why it's so powerful. If you have 2 of these on the field, this is again a theoretical thing. You teleport to the enemy, attack them directly, and then teleport yourself on the opposite side of the field. You can do wacky shit like that. No other card can do that. The enemy has no control over your deck leader movement, so... yeah. Pretty powerful, huh? Yeah, but the thing about... I discussed these cards, these are only effective if you have a lot of monsters out in the field. But in saying that, I'd argue... so are these. So I'll probably move a lot of these cards down, on the same plane. But I can't justify putting some of these cards in C tier compared to, the Eye of Truth. It really is hard. You'd have to set such specific rules to get, a be-all, end-all list. And then if you had to set specific rules, you'd start excluding things, and you'd have to set up different tier lists, so... Earthshaker. Ridiculous card. So this destroys Old Labyrinth, it mixes up all the tiles, and it also moves monster and trap card locations. So this is already a game-ending spell. So the way I would treat a card like this is probably not think about the RNG factor too much. When I say this is used as a game ender, it's probably better used the more that you're at a disadvantage compared to a lot of these other cards where you do it when you're at an advantage or disadvantage, or you know exactly what you're doing to scrape a one-turn win. If you use Earthshaker when you have an advantage, you risk losing the game straight away, so... C? No, I think this is still, it's very expensive. It is also guaranteed to clear Old Labyrinth on the field. Think about the reliability versus the unreliability. And when you think about the unreliability, what is unreliable, right? Think about it, right? So it moves everything randomly. You can't guarantee it's going to move all of your monsters around the enemy deck leader. What you should be thinking about is if the enemy monsters are near your deck leader and you activate this, they're far more likely to be further away than they were from your deck leader. Stuff like that, you know. It's not like this is any better than any of these other cards up here. It's definitely not a dark hole. If you're using it as a get out of jail free card, it doesn't really compare. Not as good as Raigeki. But this is more of a game changer than a lot of these other cards. I think it's going in B. Low B. It's so expensive. But again, I did put this card here, Meteor Crush, because it doesn't really... It's not guaranteed to do anything useful. Tell me why a stop defense should be higher. Again, like a lot of these things, like magical neutralizing Forcefield not being S, stop defense not being higher, these are cards that I love, and I can't... What's the word I'm looking for? I guess justify their usefulness, I don't know, in certain situations. Creature swap is actually extremely reliable, but only if you play the game out in a certain way. And I think involving it in a strategy where you force the enemy to move in a certain way is probably how you would play it. Yeah, but that's the only use that it has. It's very bad at doing other things. You never gotten creature swap. This flips all the cards on the field diagonally. Unless a deck leader is there, it doesn't... Then nothing changes. It's on a diagonal plane and it's always the same diagonal. Always the exact same diagonal. Pretty sure it's bottom left to top right. So it doesn't matter what side you're on, it's the same. So once you know which way it flips, you know which way all the cards are going to flip diagonally every single time. So this, unlike Earthshaker, is extremely reliable. Like, very, very reliable. You know exactly what it does. Thing is, how useful is it? Again, if you're being cornered, it can reset the game. But so can Dark Hole and some of the other stuff. Pushing monsters away to the other side of the field is probably no more useful than spellbinding them, which Sword's Revealing Light does, which also flips it up. So this is probably going to have to be an A tier. And yeah, I can't really put it as high as like Monster Reborn and stuff, but it is... Like, the capability is scary. Using this to teleport your own monsters into the enemy and OTK them is always a possibility. Like, it's pretty insane. So this goes in A. We can OTK someone with it, but we can't really do that with some of these other cards, so... Yeah, that looks good. Look at that. No cards down here left. Let's reassess the burn card situation, right? Because not all these cards are that great. Because these lower cards require a lot of other cards to be out for them to be exceptionally effective. So these are going to be lowered. But you know what, I think 1000 life point gain is probably more useful than switching attack and defense when you think about them flat. They're not F rank because in a burn strategy where you have 3 cruels, and I know this seems ridiculous, but again, we're considering a game where some people would probably play strategies involving a lot of cards, or at least try to. You have 3 cruels and 2 Midnight Fiend. Sparks does 850 damage. Hinatama does 900. And Final Flame does 1,000. So suddenly, like, if you actually set up a burn deck, all these cards become tremendous fires. Alright, now's a good time to state any objections or offer any hot takes before we wrap this up. I mean, Sparks is more useful in a burn deck than something that isn't Sparks. Apart from other burn cards, obviously. Okay, whoa. SS tier for Darkness Approaches. Well, the fact it does require... I like... The reason why it's the top thing, right, is it's based around being able to reuse flip effects. But obviously that requires other spells to be useful. In which case it is absolutely broken, but on its own, when it's not under a microscope, it's still the position it is at right now, so it's like top either way. How is Soul the Pure S rank? How? Spy should be an F? Well, D is the F, right? Just think about D being F. Because these are all like the worst spells in the game. These are cards that are useful in certain situations. These are cards that are generally useful. These are cards that are always useful, and these are cards that are always really good. If Inexperienced Spy goes down, then I think so does Eye of Truth. Ryoku. This is spells, not equips. Yeah, you'd never really have an advantage playing Burning Land over anything else, wouldn't you? Yeah, I guess the information Eye of Truth has is a bit more exact, but... At least this thing still gives you information, though. I can dig it for a D tier spell. Block attack. It's stop defense. Why do you guys keep saying block attack? That's the trap card. That's a completely different card than stop defense. What else have we got? Okay, so tell me how eradicating Aerosol is far worse than Cold Wave. Tell me how something that kills Jirai Gumo, Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth, Cocoon of Evolution, potentially Arsenal Bug is better than Cold Wave, which kills the worst archetype in the game. Like, the best card that can kill is Brachio Raiders. Hey, Q-Master. Labyrinth Wall... What's good about Labyrinth Wall? Just Desserts is kind of like if Tremendous Fire had like a critical chance, but you knew when the crit was coming, you just had to wait the enemy to set it up for you. That kind of doesn't make sense. Labyrinth Wall, like, you just create a rock. Like, what? You just put a fucking rock on the field. Cool. No one can move or play cards that aren't through Labyrinth in there. Whoa, look out. Yeah, I know, I just mean in general. Other people are saying it's good, and I'm like, what does it do? Pretty much nothing. No, I... That's just a fucking terrible justification. I'm sorry, but, like, just because you know Jirai Gumo is coming, it doesn't mean you don't need to kill it. And you can get Great Moth or Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth. The enemy plays it. They might play Cocoon of Evolution first and face up defense mode on Forest with a equip or two in their nature effects, so they got like 4,000 plus defense. They bring like 3 of those out. That's possible, and you're just eradicating Aerosol. Mimicat higher than Swords of Reveal? Yeah. Mimicat is... It can win you a game. It can just straight up win you a game. It can also stop you from losing a game. It can also revive Swords of Revealing Light, so haha. It can revive anything, even itself. Just, how do you even compare a card to something that can revive any card? The difference is, like, well, if you say, why is a Mimicat at the top? Because Mimicat, if you revive spells, you can't activate them on the same turn. So I'd rather have a Dark Hole in my hand than a Mimicat in my hand and a Dark Hole in the graveyard. No, it only raises their defense. So if you're playing an attacking strategy, which is what anyone should be, because the point of the game is to reduce your opponent's life points to 0, then why do you need to play Yellow Luster Shield? Unless you're playing like a Reptile deck and you play 3 Yellow Luster Shield with Serpentine Princesses and then activate like Shield and Defense. Shield and Defense. Sword and Shield, but it's just like, you need such a massive setup for Sword and Shield to actually be useless. Otherwise, it's probably not actually doing anything. Flipping all the attack and defensive monsters on the field, like, how is that any better than just putting another equip on your monster or playing any other, like, buff card? Yeah, Mimicat to revive Mimicat is big brain. Hey, think about that. Potentially, that could be crazy. Like, what if the enemy only had 1 Mimicat, but they had Mask of Darkness? So you revive their Mimicat, so they can't revive it anymore with their Mask of Darkness. I mean, that's never going to fucking happen, but... you know... Solemn's Lawbook better than Monster Reborn. Very, very tough one. I do think Monster Reborn is seriously one of the best cards in the game. Magical Library. Maybe because it's not in the fucking game. That's why it's not in the SSSTL. Also, the fact we don't have SSSTL. And you know what? You're right about the water thingy. I mean, I already considered that, but it's still... I think it's still similar to other cards in the sense that even though this is potentially more useful, and this... Not just Fish, Sea Serpent, Aqua, but also even Reptiles, a lot of their best cards are actually water. But Fish aren't really that great. Like, that's why this card is low. Like, killing fish. It's not really going to do much. You probably just beat them with most most normal like deck. Just has more damage than fish. You could use these in conjunction with Aqua or Sea Serpent. Sea Serpent probably like after you rapidly bring them out, and there's only 5 Sea Serpents in the game, so a deck like that would be staffed for spell cards. So it is better than all these other cards here, but yeah. Monster Reborn is bottom S. You know what? I'm almost thinking about it. Like, just the potential is really crazy. I think the versatility of it is what really blows my mind. Like, you can do things with it that you can't do with anything else in the game except Mimicat. It's just hard to put Monster Reborn in S tier when Mimicat is there. Because, yeah. Mimicat is basically Monster Reborn plus another card. Like, it's ridiculous. It's Monster Reborn plus another A tier card. You can either use Mimicat to end the game with a powerful monster, or you can use it to stop you from losing the game by reviving a Mirror Force, potentially. But in saying that, I think it goes above Heavy Storm now that I think about it. It's better as a game-ending card. Well, yes and no. Like, Heavy Storm, if you already have powerful stuff on the field, Heavy Storm, boom, like, you win the game, basically. If you manage to resolve that, like, having a lot of monsters next to the enemy. Monster Reborn, if you play that near the enemy, like, and the potential of it is just insane. Like, in conjunction with some of the best cards in the game, it's crazy. In conjunction with, like, you take control of the enemy's strongest card, attack him directly, play Monster Reborn on top of it, then attack him directly a second time, and then you still have that initially very high-powered monster. Now permanently after you've attacked them twice with it. Pumpkin is shit. If I ever did a monster tier list, Pumpkin would be not that high. I wouldn't purposely put it in like a really low tier just to piss people off, but it really would not compare to a lot of the really good cards in the game. Yeah, Monster Recovery is broken, man. It is broken, I'll tell you that. It is literally broken. That's not a good thing. All of the chosen terrain. I don't know. It's hard to really say because how useful is changing the floor to a neutral terrain anyways? I put these terrain cards up here because I really rate terrain very, very highly. So high, in fact, that I rate removing the possibility of the enemy having a terrain advantage over you higher than the ability to destroy a strong specific type. Anyone else have any objections with anything in this list before we seal it off? Why is Call the Hornet so high? Alright, let's remember it's a 1 deck cost card. Again, I don't factor in the deck cost too much, but when you compare something that you could, you know, you can stick 3 of these in any deck and compare it, like, compete against any capacity. Let's say you have a dragon deck with, you know, 7-star deck leader and you have Curse of Dragons. You can play 2,000 attack star, 2,000 attack for 3 stars Curse of Dragon. And then it just creates Wasteland everywhere. You can stick, like, imagine first turn you actually draw Curse of Dragon, 3 Nails of Bane, and, like, a Horned Unicorn. You have a 4,600 attack card that creates Wasteland wherever it attacks. If you turn that into a zombie, you now have a 5,000 attack card that, that is going to just kill everything. If the enemy plays either Yami or Wasteland, which features some of the strongest archetypes in the game, machines, fiends, spellcasters, all very high damage, you can just change your card to zombies, and now you're strong on the enemy terrain. There's, I think, a few justifications of why it's just like, I seriously think you could put Call the Haunted in your deck and not, like, you could use it in a duel, like, most duels. In and of itself, it's not useful, like, in a way that a lot of other cards, like, you wouldn't put this card before any of these other cards up here, no way. But this basically gives the ability to swap from having your own terrain advantage to a different terrain advantage, which is pretty good. There's also a lot of other strategies, like as I mentioned, the Cursed Dragon one. 2000 attack, 3-star monster that turns things to Wasteland. So, and also Dark Dragon's compatible with, like, Nails of Bane, one of the best equips in the game. So imagine Cyberstein, but with 2000 attack, and it has a 700 attack power up for it in addition to 500 attack power ups. It does cost you a turn to activate. Like, it's not like this strategy is super broken or anything, but like, it has its uses. I actually, I think Umi is only here. Like, the way I put these is the benefit of different types. So, like, for this you've got rocks, zombies, dinosaurs, and machines. This one you got fish, aqua, sea serpent. Right? So that's why I ranked them down that way. Otherwise, I would probably put this, like, lower. Because why was I going to say that? Oh yeah, because you probably wouldn't actually use this in a water deck, because all your water cards just create water. All the water monsters, all the good ones. Also, I just thought about this. Look at this, quickly. How, like, the sky aligns. Look, it goes... Cool. Alright, now I gotta put that back in order. Was that it? I think it was. Alright. Alright, there's thunder as well. Oh yeah, and some of them have the multi-weakening properties. Forest has beast warriors, insects, plants, and pyros. They have 5 types they benefit. So they got 5, and then Wasteland has 4. What? Rocks, machines, dinosaurs, which dinosaurs don't even like, they suck, okay? And then I gotta start again. Machines, rocks, dinosaurs, zombies. 4. Was there 5? Is there another one? Yeah, this game's never ever going to be remade. Ever. So, yeah, that's why I don't waste my energy talking about it, because it's not going to be remade. You do realize Hinotama is lower than Final Flame, right? And again, the reason why these are above here is because you can set up a situation for these to be more useful. So these are more reliable and more useful more often than this card. This card basically tells you whether you can attack the opponent directly or not in a certain situation, like if they have trap cards, and if they don't, you can attack them. But if they do, it doesn't actually do anything anyway. This one, if the enemy had like 800 life points left and you had your cruels and shit set up, you can just activate one of them and win the game. Why don't you like Solomon's Lawbook? I don't think you get it, man. This is like, Solomon's Lawbook is the only way you're going to cycle through your deck. You can also use it to finish a game by cycling through a perfect hand. You can use it on your final move to like optimize the contents of your hand. Say if you had like a bunch of weird, like a bunch of really powerful traps in your hand, but you wanted to end the game right fucking now, like you had the opportunity to do so. Say if you have one monster you can play and then one equip for it, and then like a mirror force, and then like, I don't know, a Swords Revealing Light, but you don't want to use it, you want to end the game right now. You can dump mirror force, dump Swords Revealing Light, play Solomon's Lawbook. Then if you draw 3 more equips, or you draw another Solomon's Lawbook, you can continue doing that until you draw a perfect hand. It doesn't draw you new cards though. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. You can dump your entire hand and play Solomon's Lawbook, and you draw a completely new hand. The only problem with that is summoning power issues if you kept dumping monsters, but as I use in my example, if you had like a lot of powerful spells and traps, then it would justify. You can actually do it. And it's like, that's not the only thing it's useful for. You can literally use it to cycle through your deck and accelerate it. So, even though I don't think this would be a make or break card, I imagine a lot of people playing it. I don't think you would have to play it, but I imagine a lot of people playing 3 of these if they were like trying to verse each other. Because you could, as I said, you could do shit like final move, you just activate a bunch of these, chain them together to draw through your deck and get the optimal hand to win the game. Labyrinth Wall is better than the bad burn cards. What use would you do for Labyrinth Wall? No, you're not dumb. You're not dumb. I just... Because that's what I thought when I was trying to figure out, like, where would you put this? What use do you have for this? You sacrifice a turn. Like, when you have effects like these, you need to really justify their usefulness. Just think of what you could do, any possible move you could make, and compare it to putting one Labyrinth tile on the field. In like any situation. I'm not saying there isn't one, I just cannot think of one to save my life. Like, if I had a gun to my head right now, I'd be shot in the face. No. You realize how long it takes to box yourself, right? If you're going to talk about a certain map, and we're talking about single player, you just sit back and you don't aggro like 90% of the enemies in the game, so you don't need to box yourself in. People think, like, I know it's the idea of boxing yourself in with Labyrinth is really cool, but it doesn't do anything. Like, it's just, it takes so long. If you want to put a straight line through the middle, you need at least 5 turns. You need to play... Actually, I think you need 6. You play 3 Labyrinth Wall, and then 4th turn. So, first turn you play Labyrinth Wall, 2nd turn you play Labyrinth Wall, 3rd turn you play Labyrinth Wall. 4th you play a Spell Recovery, but you can't activate that until the 5th turn. On the 5th turn you activate the 2nd Spell Recovery. You can't activate that 5th Labyrinth Wall until, you know, the 5th turn, and you want to put a straight line through the middle. You're going to take 7 turns plus 1 because of that delay from reviving a spell. You need 8 turns to create a straight line against like the middle of the field. Like, it's ridiculous. You could literally do anything other than that, and this like would be a better, like, it would be better use of your turns. Any other objections? Or we might wrap this up soon and I might go play some video games. Why is Yami the worst? Maybe it should be above Meadow, shouldn't it? It's... Yeah, because you got, yeah, 3, and then this has got 2. You got spellcasters, fiends, and zombies, so that's 3, and then you've got warriors and beast warriors, so that's 2. It's a good spot. Did I do the trap cards already? No, I haven't. Probably do that later or tomorrow. I don't know. Like, I don't have a schedule for this. I'm literally just doing these videos because I'm bored, and I feel like some people would appreciate actually watching it and listening. So, and I don't know. I think some family came over, so if they're still here, I probably won't be streaming. Yeah, I have one set up for traps, and I have one set up for equip cards that I'd like to do soon. No, monsters is going to be... I wouldn't do monsters, I'd just do monster types. Monsters would take way too long. Like, there's literally hundreds of monsters in the game that I have to sit here and rank. Yes, I did burp. Alright, I think this is it. I think this is the tier list we've got. Yeah, I'm barely looking through this that hard, but I'm pretty happy with it. Yeah, the thing about Dying Keto is, yeah, I think you're right actually, and I was gonna put this lower before. Because you have to take damage for this to do anything. You have to basically take a direct hit that doesn't kill you for this to be good. In which case, yeah, it's good. Like when the game gives it to you as a destiny draw, it's good, but it's still not on the level of the higher spells. Yeah, I think you're right. Like, there's a difference between damaging someone for 3,000 and recovering yourself up to the default amount you start with, which isn't even that much anyways. You compare it to Soul of the Pure. Like, Soul of the Pure and these other cards can actually recover more than this. They have the potential to recover more, and they're not capped. So at 4,000 life points, the starting this is literally useless until you take damage, whereas everything else works. So yeah, Dying Keto can maybe go down here. At its strongest, it can recover thousands of life points, but so can these. If you have a bunch of face-up defense. Funnily enough, Wizard Lizard. I don't even think recovering life points matters against the Chakra final boss, because if you replenish your life points, he's just gonna use, like, his Ryokus are just gonna give his cards more damage. The most efficient way to play against him is to just not get hit ever. Every single card in your deck should be used correctly, but it is still a play extender. You can also dump material to the graveyard. Say if you have a monster you want to monster reborn and not play. Now you might think that's stupid, but I can explain after why it's not. Say you have... Hold on, I'm gonna sneeze. Say you don't have Monster Reborn, but drawing it is going to win you the game. but there's no powerful monsters in the graveyard currently you can revive. Maybe something happened like Soul Eater ate them all away. Imagine dumping a card with like dumping a full hand with a monster card with Solomon's Law Book, and then drawing out your monster Reborn and then using that to end the game. Now I know that sounds stupid because why not just play the card in the first place? But what if this was something like Muka Muka or Sword Stalker, anything that gains damage based on what's in the graveyard? There's also the potential that, you know, when you play a card, it's hard to explain this without showing, like, let me do this. See this, right? Alright, maybe this is a bit better. This is a terrible idea. Why didn't I just do this the first time? Okay, so let's say your deck leader's here. This is, I don't know, we'll just say this is a red rose, right? Yeah. Instead of playing your monster card here and then being able to attack once or flip it up and attack twice, you can play Monster Reborn, right, after you've dumped that card into the graveyard, move it, you activate it, you flip it face up, and then move it forward, then you revive the card on this spot, and then now your monster's on this spot. The monster you could have played in the first place is now on this spot, and then you can move another tile. Cool strategies, right? That's Monster Reborn for you, and Mimicat. Very powerful. Just being able to do stuff like that is way more than the card should be able to do, but it's possible. Well, Solomon's Lawbook is a play extender. Like, you just dump cards as you draw what you want to play, or what you want to create out of the cards you've dumped and what else you've drawn and kept in the hand. So, and this is the only card that does something like that. It's pretty insane when you think about it. And again, you got no other draw power in the game, so. And again, you think about if you had a deck where you could only think of like 12 good cards instead of 13, you could just play 3 Solomon's Lawbook instead. That's very niche, but that kind of makes it a step above anything that is kind of useless in a deck. Drawing out another card in place of itself will cycle you through 37 cards instead of 40. Can we start a petition on Facebook for a remake? You can, but I'm not. I think this is it. I think this is the actual list. Like, final. We've looked at it like a few times now. Too bad you can't get my power. I'm not going to lead a crusade that I have no interest in. Again, I'm only doing this video because I'm quite bored, and I figured some people would actually like to listen and watch and learn a thing or two about the spells. No, I'm not leading. I don't care about a remake. Like, it's one of my least favorite topics to discuss right now. It is on the level of Ryoku and Mirror Force. It is really, like, my enthusiasm is so low. This is it. This is the final tier list. Any final objections? No? Oh, man. Some of this stuff looks really out of place, but I think this is good enough. It's not block attack. It is block... stop defense. They're different cards. Stop defense is a spell. Block attack is a trap. They're both completely different. Get myself a beer. I don't drink beer. I mean, we have beer in the house, but I don't want to drink it. Alright, this is it. This is it. So, thanks everyone for hanging out. One sec. Let's see if this is... if my webcam's actually connected so I can say bye. Is it me? Yeah, it is. Sup. Great time to switch to camera when I do that. That's it for the video, so thanks everyone for hanging out. How long was this? 2 hours something, holy shit. Monster tier pumpkining is definitely not going to be S rank. Definitely not going to be S rank. So, I just thought I'd pop in for a second to say bye. Thanks for watching the video. I did discuss in a video I uploaded a couple of days ago that my passion for this game is dying, but I decided to do this stream because I was just bored. I'm not going to guarantee doing any other ones, any other tier list, but I probably will do a trap one either later or tomorrow. Man-Eater Bug, not S tier either. Anyways, yeah. Done. Thanks everyone for popping in, and I'm going to do some other stuff. Bye-bye.